all day. Marc Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, joins us on 365 Sports. Marc, a lot going on. Thank you very much for your time. He's in Vegas, by the way. Marc Daniels in Vegas. So, Marc, how would you say the reaction has been to the early part of the Scott Frost tenure?
Oh, I think it's been a big hit among UCF fans just because, change will do that when you come off of wasn't a very good season. And I think bringing Scott back in the history that Scott had led to a built-in honeymoon period. Now, you got to go play football. Scott's been a couple of weeks into practice, and, with a big roster overhaul, it's hard to get a feel. You're installing a lot of things, but I think right now Scott is trying to build a culture and convincing his football team to buy into what his coaching staff is teaching them and to work hard every day and let the process begin to take itself. I believe Scott really likes this team in the sense of the type of players that they brought in. UCF was not among the heavy spenders in the portal. What they did is identify what Scott wants to build and get guys in here, tell everybody, look, we got a wide open depth chart. Now let's go earn it. And it's not that UCF is void of talent. I think the case of we're starting with a new slate. Let's go see who's going to be our best players and build this thing. And then from there, we'll, hopefully by the time we get to September, have a football team that we believe can go out and compete. I don't know if there's a leader in the clubhouse for the quarterback position. I don't know other position battles, but I know that UCF feels like they've got a good base to build on, and everybody loves everything when it's April, and you're optimistic about a season.
Would you call it a battle royale at quarterback because they've got several guys vying for that spot?
Not as a battle royale. I think that there's probably a couple of guys that may have a step or two, over others. So UCF's got a transfer that was at Tennessee, went to Indiana. They brought in that I think fits the part. At 6'4", 220. Cam Fancher's a kid that played at FAU and Marshall that probably just needed weapons around him. He's actually got an incredible arm and, good speed. Dylan Risk got a few starts finishing the season last year. Jakari Brown is a really intriguing 6'4", 220-pound machine as well. So I think what Scott's done is he said, look, let's kind of battle out a little bit. I think Mackenzie Milton, the former UCF quarterback that's a quarterback coach now, I think is helping to develop a plan for them. If they started a game, if they had a game Saturday, I don't know who would start, and I'm not quite sure when they finish spring practice still know. But my guess is Scott has an idea who he thinks is the best chance to emerge, and they'll let that play itself out. There's some other areas that are more established. I think UCF's defensive line is going to be pretty solid. I think at the secondary, I think they're going to be better. Guys, for us, again, I said this Gus was a good man. I think Gus will do well at Florida State. He tried to patchwork something in the transition, which was a double transition. It was transitioning from the American to the Big 12 and to get to that speed and physicality of the Big 12. And then it was a portal era. I'm trying to do that where you were competing against other people. And I think for where UCF was, it just didn't line up. And now I think it's a little bit more about player development, multi-year plan, and players that get that and players that you believe are going to come and want to play and not come play and hunt for the next place to go, which is tough in this current market.
Marc, anything just about Scott Frost and his presence and just his demeanor and all of that, that strikes you as maybe different or evolved from 7 years ago when he was last in that saddle?
That's far.
So much forgiveness. Wait, did you say forgiveness like far or forgiveness like forgiveness? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Forgiveness.
I'm hearing far.
Forgiveness. Like forgiveness. Forgiveness? Forgiveness.
I'm still hearing far, but whatever.
Introducing Stealth 2 with more carbon for more forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Just hit it.
There's a lot that's very similar to Scott. I knew Scott well when he was here. It's been great to reconnect with him. The dry sense of humor, the quick wit guy, the guy that loves to play trivia games, the guy that has a little bit of a different perspective on life. That's the same Scott, but it's a much more mature Scott. He went through a lot, obviously, in Nebraska, I think on the field and even dealing with some other things. His family's front and present, which, Scott really was big into privacy when he was in Orlando with his wife and his first child was born And in Nebraska didn't see much. Now Scott's wife is front and center. The kids who are still finishing up school in Arizona but will move here, they were in town recently and out at practice and hugging dad off the practice field. And that's just a little bit of a different Scott. I think fatherhood and family will ground you with that. But I think I said before the last time I was out with you guys, look, the stars aligned. I'm not quite sure if you'd have told Scott Frost a year ago, hey, something could happen that you probably never thought happened, is that you get a chance to come back to UCF and be the head coach. I don't think Scott would have believed that. And then it wasn't until he learned about the vacancy at UCF that it became, wow. And then he kind of needed to get a quick kick in the butt from his wife that said, look, if you really want this, you got to convince them. They're not going to hire you just because you coached there before, because you're a different guy. And then Scott had to sell, the UCF brass on that. But yes, there are a number of things that are different about Scott, but I think football-wise, I think he's cherishing this opportunity. He wants to get it right. I think his vision aligns with UCF's administration on the way we need to do it. That may be different than Baylor, may be different than Iowa State. It certainly is going to be different than Texas Tech for the upcoming season. So I think that puts UCF in the spot where I'm not saying there's no expectations. I think it's a more realistic expectation to build something, and I think Scott's confident that he can get UCF there.
So you're in Vegas, and that Crown tournament is going on.
The basketball. Job. It really is.
Yeah, I know. And we're keeping you from either losing money at the slot machines or playing golf and looking at just the beauty of Vegas. UCF.
I always have time. You texted me and I said I'm there. What time you need? Okay.
Yes, sir, and we appreciate that very, very much. You're in Vegas. UCF is in the quarters. They're playing Cincinnati, 2 Big 12 teams. It has been a tough run for Johnny Dawkins at UCF. Does this matter at all, what they do in Vegas, and what is the sense of him moving forward?
Well, UCF hasn't said anything about a change, and Johnny Dawkins is under contract. And look, there are factors that come into play, just like we're talking about football. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not just at UCF. I think it's in a lot of places where fans say, hey, you've got to do this and you have to do that. And yet they may not take a step back to think about it. And again, this isn't just about UCF. It's any place. If you're going to make a coaching change in football or basketball and you have a coach under contract, let's go through this quickly. You're paying that coach off, okay? You're paying a staff off. You're hiring a new staff and you're paying more for the head coach and the staff. And that head coach is going to know how much you're increasing his budget to pay. When you start to add that up, and it starts to get into not just $1 or $2 million, but it starts to get into the $6, $7, $8, $9 million. In this current climate, where most schools are putting the majority of money into what sport, guys? Football. Mm-hmm. Okay? So if you want to make a change, I think fans need to understand there's a cost to that. And right now, everyone's trying to figure out, how do I pay football so I can maximize revenue opportunities there? And how many programs, again, this is in general, have the extra $8 to $10 million to go, you know what? I'll blow out what I have and I'll bring in something new and I'll spend there. It's just an economic model that is a little bit challenging. UCF was among the bottom part of the schools when it came to what they paid players. Everybody knows that's not a secret. And for those, and I'm not saying there's not pure basketball criticism of Johnny Dawkins. I'm just saying take into account the resources. And you say, well, then give more. Okay, what pot do you want to go to? We're still growing a budget to get in the middle part of the Big 12. We're still not yet a full member till we get that first check. We've got to plan for whatever the house settlement's going to be and all that stuff. So there's a lot of moving parts that it's easy for an angry fan on Twitter to go, fire this guy, fire that guy, hire that guy, hire this guy. And it's not as easy as people think it is. But the long-winded answer to the question is, I don't anticipate UCF making a change. I think that they're looking at everybody else. How do I build a roster for next year? And how do I give our head coach the chance to be successful? UCF's leading scorer, and he led the Big 12 in scoring, Keyshawn Hall, is not playing this week. If you were to believe the reports, and I do, Keyshawn has anywhere from 3 to 6 offers that are going to pay him what has been reported between $1.5 and $2.5 million. That's the system we're operating in, and if Keyshawn can get that, he should go. And some of those schools are in our league, some are in different leagues. That's the market. And there's a very good chance that when UCF lands in Orlando, whenever they're done playing in the tournament, there may be 0 players on the roster because it's just where we are in college basketball. And like everybody else, they're out there right now trying to figure out, what's the market? What's the market that I can afford? And when you think, okay, here's a guy, and again, example, played in the MAC, averaged 10 points, 7 rebounds. Hey, he think he might be worth what? And I'll just put a number on it. He's worth 150 or 200. Then you find out he's seeking 800,000. Okay. I mean, that's the game we're all trying to figure out how to sort through. And I don't even know what the system's going to be when it all settles. And we'll see. But yeah, UCF's got Cincinnati in this event. And, you keep playing basketball and see what might happen. Cincinnati's lost no players for this event. And most believe because they backloaded payments. So their guys are here if they want to get that last check. Good for them. I mean, if the system worked for them, UCF's got 8.5 guys able to play and 2 guys that averaged 1 and 2 points in a big game yesterday. And that's just kind of what you get with the rosters out here in Vegas.
Is it almost like a bowl game in that regard now, where you got guys who are averaging 1 and 2 points, just like if you play a bowl game, you have guys go in the portal, opt out of a bowl game. Now all of a sudden, the guy who scores 2 better score 12 because the guy who scored 12 is in the portal.
UCF's 2 key players today are in the portal. Now, those are guys who want a chance to play, and they might be best served to go find, a good mid-major that they could play 25, 28 minutes a game. And they're not high-paid guys for UCF. I mean, good guys had good games yesterday, so I understand that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, the answer to the question is this is equivalent to like a 6-6 bowl game. The appeal, one, is they paid for everything. UCF paid for nothing. Airlines covered, hotels covered, buses covered, food, and so they came out here. It's a chance to play. I will say this, okay, and I'm kind of speculating in this crazy world. This event's not put on by accident by Fox. And my point is, they have 16 teams that came out here. They brought their A teams out here, their production team and broadcast team. They're playing games at MGM Grand and at the T-Mobile. What I mean by that is there's a reason that Fox chose to do this. Part of it is they want content during the week leading up to the Final Four. In this world, guys, I'm just throwing out a scenario. I talked about this in my show. If somebody came along and said, guys, we want to create a brand new tournament at the end of the year, and we're going to throw tens of millions of dollars, and you put in front of a bunch of 18 and 22-year-olds and said, hey, we go play this event, and it's a 16-team tournament, and they're going to pay you X amount of million just for getting in, and then each win you advance. And you told somebody that they could make $15 to $20 million for players if they won a 4-round tournament in Las Vegas to spend a week. How's that team vote going to go when somebody goes, hey, how much did we make to travel from Seattle to Newark to San Antonio for the NCAA tournament? And they'll say, well, your team got 6 units. And it's, no, how much do the players make? Well, the answer is 0. You tell me how that players' vote's going to go the next time when somebody puts $20 million on the table versus 0.
Never thought of it that way.
I don't think this is a mistake that Fox put this tournament together. I think that in this crazy world of what we're doing, this Players Era event in November, it's going to have 32 teams come out here in 2026, $1 million a team just to show up. I don't know how they turn a profit, but in this day and age, guys, I don't put anything past the idea of the players asking, what's for me? And that probably is going to force the NCAA basketball tournament to answer that question. Somebody's going to cut the nets down Monday and celebrate a championship, and the history books will forever say Duke, Florida, Houston, Auburn national champion. And there's incredible value to that. 18 to 22-year-old kids today would likely ask you, wait, how much could I get? And either A, they're going to pay in the NCAA tournament, or somebody like the group here is going to say, what do you think of this option?
Mm-hmm. Mark, kind of in the same vein of just the outside money part of college athletics that I guess for some's entertaining, but it definitely can get very old. It's not like why we were all fans from the beginning. But it is obviously important, especially with this, wherever we end up after all this. So with that in mind, the House settlement, that finalization kind of looming right now, just from UCF's perspective, how would you describe sort of where they feel like they are, how confident they are moving forward if House were to get passed, and just sort of what part of the universe are they living in when it comes to that post-House world that's potentially out there?
Right. So I think it gets approved, and I think within an hour there's 50 lawsuits challenging it. That's on the separate side of it, okay?
Yeah.
The answer to the question is, I'm not saying UCF's in a great spot, but they're in a manageable spot because the projected number of $20.5 million, I think I mentioned before I was on with you guys, half share UCF $18 million, half of that has gone to pay the American for the buyout. UCF has basically been a $9 million school the last couple of years. So if you project the numbers to 45 coming from the Big 12 and you start doing the math, that's 36 million. UCF basically looks at backing out 20.5 out of that to go towards the House settlement and would still increase what they had been getting on the media revenue side. So from that standpoint, they're in a great shape that they didn't have to find a budget line to go, how do we find $20 million from? Now, obviously, you're giving up a big chunk of that incoming dollar that you had anticipated, but it is a much different approach for UCF to say, hey, these are new dollars we weren't making before. We back this out. Now, are they going to pay the full 20.5? I'm not quite sure most of these schools who say that actually will. By the time you get done of deciding how much you're going to pay this sport, that sport, again, they may come close to it. They may be several million below it. For example, I'm not giving away secrets. I don't think Scott Frost has spent what UCF had allotted for him, even though you got on the spring portal coming up, because their philosophy is I'm not going to overpay. I mean, we think the value of a player is this. So the answer to your question, I think they're in a good spot because of the formula I just explained to you. But there's other things that UCF is working towards, the construction of our new tower in football that's going to generate significant money. So it's those new revenue streams that you're working on in the course of several years. So they'll be in a better position, still working to increase the budget. But the answer to your question is they're not panicking, going, where do we find $20 million when they've got this new windfall of money coming in on the media side.
Mark, thank you. Enjoy Vegas. I know you will. Good luck to UCF, Cincinnati, 2 Big 12 teams. So somebody's moving into the semifinals. We appreciate it very much. And enjoy your week. That's Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, with us